Hi, and welcome to this week's episode. And I am back with my friend, Dr. Nashat Latib. We had so much fun last week talking about gut inflammation. And now we're getting into December. We're approaching the holidays, which I know, because I hear about it every day, is a really scary time for many of us around food. Food is social. We grew up having these wonderful holiday meals. We want to enjoy ourselves. I know for myself, I grew up making sugar cookies and, how do we combine having a wonderful holiday season with still trying to do these fantastic things we talked about last week, keeping our gut microbiome healthy. And then not only that, but setting a good example for our children and our families about how to eat healthy food. Can we really have it all, or should we just blow it over Christmas and start again in January?
So I always say don't blow it, right? Because the after effects of blowing it over the holidays are just, it takes so long to recover.
Well, and I mentioned last week, even just eating gluten makes my stomach hurt. So I don't want to do that. Yeah.
No.
So how can we have just say we're cooking for our family, or maybe we're going as a guest to another person's family. How can we manage this season and still stay healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when you're cooking at home, I find it a lot easier, right? So, I'll be honest, I often go for hosting more than, being a guest, even though being a guest is a lot easier. But the reality is that just like you can go to any restaurant and absolutely make healthy choices, if you go to anybody's house, the chances are you can make some healthy choices. Turkey. There's nothing wrong with turkey.
Just plain protein.
Just eat protein, and oftentimes I'm finding that people are having a little bit less traditional Thanksgivings and Christmases and holidays where there might be, some sort of roast. The reality is that whatever protein is on the table is probably okay.
So if you're on any type of weight loss plan or any sort of anti-inflammatory plan, assuming you're not vegetarian, any type of lean meat, fish or chicken, we can eat that.
We can eat that. And you want to go for vegetables.
Right.
Right? As much vegetables as you can. And you definitely don't want to go for like the cheesy, potaty,
right.
gratin, or like
it's
the shepherd's pie.
All the stuff they put on top, right?
You want to let go of the cranberry relish. We really want to go for the veggies. So try to go heavy on the green beans. Right. And
now, if you're making now we're past Thanksgiving at this point, but Christmas, it sort of can happen anytime, right?
Right.
If you're cooking, you have a lot more control. You could make the green beans or the vegetable and have a section of it that doesn't have the cream sauce on top. Or how about not making it at all? Because honestly, this isn't good for your relatives either, isn't it? So I think this is an interesting idea that we're feeding our families. And I have children, teenagers, and the idea that we're feeding our families foods that they like because it's a tradition, even though we know they're really inherently bad for us. Maybe we could break that tradition and serve a healthy Christmas dinner or holiday dinner, depending on your tradition.
Absolutely. I'm big on having alternatives on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's try something different. Something as simple as, an almond flour or cassava tortilla versus a white flour tortilla would be a wonderful swap and would still essentially accomplish the same thing. It's just a very healthy swap. Or if you're cooking at home, how about just get rid of your canola oil? We know very well, based on the research, that seed oils are highly, highly inflammatory. It's hard when you go to a restaurant, right? Because the chances are they're cooking with canola oil because that's really the most economic oil to buy. But you know what? Guess what? You can go to Costco now and you can buy a huge container of avocado oil. And avocado oil has the same cook point in terms of heat as canola oil, but it doesn't have all the inflammatory effects, and it's packed with all the healthy, omega-3s and omegas that we want. But we really don't want the 9s. We don't want the omega-9s, and the canola oil is much higher in that.
Okay, I didn't know this, and I actually don't cook with canola oil. I use olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the healthy oils?
Olive oil is great too.
Yeah, so olive oil,
avocado, coconut oil, and ghee. Believe it or not.
Ghee. So that's it comes from the Indian tradition, and it's a butter,
clarified butter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they take out all the white part of the butter, and it's basically just the clear part of the butter. That's got a really high cook point in avocado oil. So if you want to, for instance, saute something at a high temperature, olive oil will tend to burn and will get a little bit sour in terms of taste. So I tend to use olive oil on my roasted vegetables. I use it on salads. But when I'm cooking at a high temperature, I will use avocado oil and I will use ghee. Avocado oil, I would say, is kind of my go-to. I love coconut oil for curries, but coconut oil has a little bit of a stronger taste. So I find that some of my patients, don't like it as much, but when you put it in a curry, you really can't taste it at all. In fact, it enhances the flavor and makes it taste
Sounds
lovely.
delicious.
Lovely.
So making some small substitutions, like cooking your vegetables with a healthier oil. I didn't know this until just now. So canola oil is out. What else?
We really don't want to cook with sunflower oil, any of those seed oils, right? Or vegetable oils.
And now what's wrong with them?
They cause inflammation. Yeah. And they are linked to a lot of inflammatory cascades in our cells down at a cellular level. And so I have no canola oil in my house.
I don't either. I don't either. I didn't know why, but that just because I like olive oil.
Yeah. So, and you get a lot of omega-3s. So what a wonderful way to get omega-3s.
So that's a really easy substitute. What are some other easy things that we can switch? And nobody would notice that, by the way. In fact, they'd probably think your food just tasted better.
They probably think it was amazing. Yeah. Right. Another really great substitution would be gluten-free flour. Yeah. So there's a lot of really amazing gluten-free flour substitutes. Trader Joe's, really commonplace. I mean, I don't know about you, but I shop at Trader Joe's for a lot of things. They have an amazing gluten-free flour, and we bake with that at home.
Now, can you really make like holiday sugar cookies with gluten-free flour?
You can make everything with gluten-free flour.
And nobody would notice?
Nobody would notice.
Yeah.
And it's okay to put the butter, I mean, if I were to choose, I would substitute and put the butter in and then use the gluten-free flour.
So we were talking about like getting rid of everything inflammatory, but for the holidays, we're going to put gluten number 1. Dairy, maybe we can tolerate a little bit. So, we still want to enjoy ourselves. We're not suggesting get rid of absolutely everything.
You can sweeten things differently. I think that's another great topic to talk about when you're doing baked goods. Or, for instance, I make a homemade granola, which if you can look on my Instagram, I've got sort of an easy go-to make your own granola at home. And the way I make my granola is I sweeten it with applesauce, which is just a pureed apple from my refrigerator. If you're too lazy to do that, a little maple syrup is a great way to go. In, different cake recipes, you can use the healthier sugar would be, you could add a date, into your recipe and grind that up for your source because that's also got fiber in it. And you have a lower glycemic response to, the sugar from a date. The other great sugar substitute, if you just need something to put into a recipe, would be coconut palm sugar, because that also has a lower glycemic effect than just regular sugar. So even just making brownies, you can make it. I can't tell you how many times I make cookies for my staff and they don't even know that they're gluten-free, that there's no refined sugar, and that there's lower glycemic options in there to sweeten them. They don't even know the difference.
Amazing.
And I put oats in there, so there'll be lots of fiber.
So when we're talking about foods that have a lower glycemic index, that means it doesn't elevate your insulin as much. Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't make your sugar go up, right? Because our sugar will go up really quick in our blood. And then what happens when our sugar goes up? We have an insulin spike, right? And so a lot of people with weight loss resistance, they're having trouble losing weight because their insulin is constantly going up. If we can maintain our insulin at a really constant level, it's very easy to lose weight.
Yeah. So that's a huge topic, and many of you listeners have been diagnosed with insulin resistance or even have type 2 diabetes, and we still want to be able to enjoy those sweet things, but there are ways to do that. So we'll have links below to Dr. Latib's website and also your Instagram, where you've got some great recipes and ideas about how to do this.
I've got great recipes every week. And you want to make sure also when you eat your meal, be conscious of the order in which you're eating them, right? So if you start with something that is high fiber or a source of protein or even a healthy fat first before eating any carbs that you might want to indulge for the holidays on your plate, that's going to have a much better chance of controlling your sugars. Like, you're not going to get as big of a spike if you have even just like half a teaspoon of, some sort of fat, whether it's a half a teaspoon of almond butter, or eating your protein first, or eating maybe like a huge serving of vegetables first. And the lovely thing about it too is it also fills you up a little bit, so you don't overeat.
Yeah, so patients in our weight loss program, we often talk about that. Eat your protein first. So say 6 ounces of whatever your favorite protein is. By the time you've eaten that with some water, you're really not going to have that craving to eat the foods that you know are not good for you, which is so important. And then what you mentioned is, if this is what I'm understanding, is if you eat that first and then you eat your sugar element, it's not going to elevate your sugar and insulin as much.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So important, just thinking about timing of eating. That's amazing.
And also pace. I think that's really important too for us to discuss with listeners, is that you really don't want to rush through your meal, because the reality is that there is a hormone called leptin, which is our hormone that basically tells us that we're full. But it takes about 20 minutes from the time you're full for your brain to actually realize that you're full. So, and for those of you who don't know, I'm board certified in emergency medicine. So I do a lot of things really, really fast.
I was an obstetrician. Yeah, we ate our meals like this. Yeah,
I mean, shoveling it down, right?
Yeah,
and then I don't know how many of you have this problem, but raise your hand if you eat a meal and you feel good, and then all of a sudden 30 minutes later you're like, I feel terrible.
Right.
Like, how many of us do that
during the holidays? Well, that's just the traditional holiday thing, isn't it? You're like laying with your zipper undone because we didn't eat slowly enough.
Exactly. So I know this sounds really funny, but if you can somehow get to as close to 30 chews per bite, which is crazy, to chew something 30 times, because it's really hard to chew something 30 times. But that is kind of, in the literature, what's been shown to improve your digestion and your absorption of nutrients, and also allow you to eat at the right pace. So we don't want to be rushing through our meals. Enjoy a conversation. Make sure you eat your foods in the right order, and just slow it down.
And then there's this beautiful thing about mindful eating too that I love, that you and I have talked about. When we're eating these delicious foods, and how many times have I been eating a wonderful food while I was not paying attention and did not even realize what I was eating, where it's just enjoying each bite and savoring the flavor and the texture and really getting every sense out of it. It's going to take some time. You'll enjoy it a lot more. And then you won't eat as much because you're already full. And one thing that I've found, and now weight loss patients love this too, is that, the first bite of something tastes really amazing if you just enjoy the heck out of it. Second bite's pretty good too. By the third bite, it's kind of you don't really get much more out of it. And so mindful eating slowly, putting your fork down between bites. I can't tell you how many times I was told that by my mother when I was younger, but finally, as an adult, it's starting to make sense. It's not just about politeness, but also just about our physiology. We were not made to inhale massive amounts of food really quickly.
Absolutely.
And then we don't enjoy it.
No. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've eaten something so fast, felt like gluttonous and so full afterwards. And then I'm like, something that would have been otherwise so delicious all of a sudden has I've had this negative experience associated with it. And who wants to do that?
So we can have our holiday meal, whatever tradition our tradition supports. If we're making it ourselves, we definitely have a lot more control over it, don't we? So that's a unique opportunity maybe to teach your family a different way to eat. And again, I have teenagers, we have kids. Wouldn't it be amazing to teach our kids a healthier way to eat, or our older family members who are not so healthy? And then if you're in a different situation and going to someone else's home, ways to pick and choose amongst what they have available to find things that are healthier for you. And it absolutely is possible. Or you could bring one of these amazing brownie dishes that they will never know is not made with refined white sugar and the other things that are not good for them. And watch the joy on their faces when they tell you how great it is. And you tell them that it doesn't even have refined sugar in it.
Absolutely.
So I think this is something that we can learn and then pass on to other people, as mothers and as women who, honestly, we do hold the torch for teaching everybody about everything, don't we? We can learn this for ourselves and then pass it on to other people. And as someone who's just learning it myself, and thanks to my great friends like you, what an amazing opportunity to be able to enjoy the holidays in a different way without feeling sick and guilty and horrible afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And stay active.
And then what about alcohol? Because I like to drink a little bit with the holidays.
Yeah.
What should we drink if we enjoy an alcoholic beverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I always say, if you're going to drink whatever you're going to drink, try to make sure that you're drinking a full glass of cold water for every drink that you have, at least. Okay, because it definitely helps with the sugar spike, because let's face it, alcohol turns into sugar and it is going to cause spikes in our sugar, and then, try to stay away from really, really sugary cocktails, because those are probably the biggest insults, because there's so much sugar that it will just massively spike your sugar, and then you get an insulin spike.
And that's what gives you the hangover,
and
too.
It gives you the hangover. Yeah. So if you're going to drink, wine, I definitely tend to say stick towards the more clean crafted organic wines that don't have all the chemicals and the additives. And then, if you want to drink a cocktail, probably the lowest glycemic effect will be something like a tequila or a mezcal-based cocktail. If you want to do vodka, I would stay away from anything starch-based. So you would want to do a vodka that's something like Tito's would be a good one that doesn't cause as big of a glycemic effect.
So, and you've taught me this actually too. So if we do like to enjoy an alcoholic beverage, especially around the holidays, so vodka like Tito's, tequila, or even gin, right? Pretty low sugar, low carbs. But it's what we mix it with that creates the problem. And so I really enjoy, say, vodka and soda with some lime.
Yeah.
Another trick, and you said drinking sparkling water for me. If I drink a glass of Pellegrino in between each glass of wine, I'm full.
Yeah, and you probably won't drink as much.
Right, and there's some great resources that you shared with me for low sugar, organic, low sulfite wines that are going to be much less harmful for us, and not only not giving us a hangover, but not elevating our sugar.
Absolutely. We can stick a link for that below.
Right.
Too.
So Scout and Cellar is an amazing resource. I've been ordering wine from them. We can put the link below. So what's in a regular bottle of wine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So traditional bottles of wine have over 300 chemicals. Things like ferrocyanide and mega purple. I mean, does that really sound like something you want to be drinking? I don't think so. Red wines typically have thickeners. So some of my patients who start drinking clean crafted wine, they'll say, well, the red wine's not as thick. I'm like, no, but that's actually the way wine was supposed to be made. And that's the way it will come out naturally if it's done the right way. And there's usually in a traditional bottle of wine, red or white, an entire donut's worth of sugar, minimum of 16 grams of sugar. I mean, that's 4 teaspoons of sugar minimum. And some wines, your sweeter white wines, would probably have more sugar than that. So just think about what that does to your sugar level. We've been talking a lot about glycemic response and insulin. You definitely don't want to be drinking that.
I mean, it's like a candy bar, really.
And the difference in calories, right? A traditional traditional glass of wine might have about 300 calories, whereas if you buy clean crafted wine, you're talking about 90 calories.
Amazing.
So think about that. 3 glasses of wine is the same number of calories if you drink clean crafted wine versus traditional wine.
Yeah, so link below. Scout and Cellar is one of them. There are others as well. But I had a fun, she turned me on. It's actually you can get a subscription where they send you a selection of wines that they've chosen. It's kind of fun, and then you can pick your own. Because I do like to drink wine. And I also like to have a cocktail, but I've shifted to those low calorie ones. And not only does it make a difference in your waistline, but it makes a whole lot of difference in your sleep. And also how you feel the next day. So
absolutely. And for those of you who like sweetness, so one of my little tricks that I teach my patients is you can buy stevia drops. The company that I like is, it's called New Naturals, NU Naturals, and they make a clear stevia extract, and it's a bottle about this big that you can literally put in your purse. And then that way, if you're going to drink a ranch water or like a tequila, which is like a tequila and seltzer water and lime, and you just want a tad of sweetness, you can just put a couple drops. Yeah. And you get the same satisfaction without all of the rush of insulin and sugar.
Yeah, amazing. So if you're at the Mexican restaurant, you can ask for a shot of tequila on ice. Add your own stevia and lime. Just don't let them add all of the mixture and sugar to it, and you're kind of good to go. Yeah. So we figured out how to have a healthy holiday. You can get through December without gaining 10 pounds, without having a panic attack about ruining all of the plans that you've had for this year. You do not have to start this on January 1st. You can actually start it now, and you can enjoy your holidays. You can have social time. None of this has to mean that your life becomes antisocial, that you're not enjoying yourself. That's just a myth. I mean, you really can. And not only that, you can teach your family members how to eat healthy, live longer, and have happy lives as well. So it's such amazing information.
And your palate will change too. I have a lot of patients that tell me that, right? Yeah. Your palate changes over time when you start eating this way, and you really can't go back, which is what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it just doesn't taste good anymore. Well, it's so great to have you with me again. I think we have about 100 different topics we can talk about. So I'm confident that She'll be back again if she will give us the honor of her
course.
presence.
Of course.
But we'll make sure we put links below of how you can reach Dr. Nashat Latib and also her Instagram with some wonderful recipes to get through the holidays.
Perfect.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll be back next week.